It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew a version 1.0 deck list of the commander in front of us, and my quest out brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below, as well as I'd really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, consider checking out the links in the description. I'd greatly appreciate it from you. But today, we're keeping going on Aether Drift content, and the set does take place on Avishkar, and so I thought it'd be fun to take some commanders from the first time we got to go there back in Kaladesh, and today we're taking a look at Depala, Pilot, Exemplar, especially with all that new vehicle support. Depala is a 3-mana Boros Dwarf Pilot, buffing all other Dwarves by +1/+1. Going to give +1/+1 to all of our vehicles as long as there's creatures. And then whenever Depala becomes tapped, we can pay X. If we do reveal the top X of our library and put all dwarf and vehicle cards from among them into our hand and put the rest on the bottom. I like Depala because not only does she buff the dwarves, which can be great crewers for us, and the vehicles, but Depala can help dig, something that I think this color combination is going to need some help with drawing, right? Let's get more pieces to keep building our board to do that vehicle thing. All right, well, what dwarves do we have access to? There's a bunch of dwarves from the first time we went to Avishkar, but just some other ones. Gearshift Ace is a 2-mana 2/1 dwarf. It says whenever it crews a vehicle, that vehicle gets first right. Glowing from Lord of the Rings says whenever we cast an historic spell, we get a treasure. This only happens once per turn, which is great because a lot of our vehicles are artifacts, and we are playing a few legendaries, so we should be able to do this. And then we can actually sack a treasure to go to creature with if we want to, which isn't a bad ability, to be honest, because I think if we can guarantee a creature we don't necessarily want to attack us goes somewhere else, I think that's pretty useful. Magda Brazen Outlaw gives all of our other dwarves a buff, but the big ability is whenever another dwarf becomes tapped, we can create a treasure and then sack 5 treasures to go get a library, go to our library to get an artifact and put on the battlefield. This is great to just go get an artifact that we want, ideally a vehicle that we want, and we'll talk about some of the vehicles that could be really worth doing that for. Master Trinketeer gives all of our servos and thopters a buff and can make a servo. It's not a bad crew in itself for its mana cost. Mirror Entity is all creature types, so it is a dwarf, and then it has an X ability to turn all of our creatures into XXs until end of turn, which isn't a bad thing because we can still get the buffs on top of it. And once we crew the vehicles, it may end up making them better than they are, or, you never know, right? Mirror Entity does give us some options there. Renegade Wheelsmith says that whenever it becomes tapped, target creature can't block this turn. This can be used in so many ways, right? Picking on somebody who maybe only has one creature up to block, making sure a key Death Touch or something like that can't block. There's so many ways to take advantage of that. We're playing all 7 of the 7 dwarfs that we could play. They get +1/+1 for each other creature named 7 dwarfs we control and get that buff from Depala. So early game, they're nice crewers. Mid to late game, they can be great attackers on their own. SRAM, whenever we cast a vehicle, is going to draw us a card, a great ability, helping us churn through our deck. And then Veteran Motorist, whenever it comes in, we scry 2. And then whenever it crews a vehicle, that vehicle gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So again, these dwarves having these fun abilities for when they crew is very useful to us. But let's get into kind of the main thing of the deck, right? And that's vehicles. And there's a lot of vehicles, but I want to cover a few cards that care about vehicles before we get into the actual vehicles themselves. Of course, we're playing the new Chandra. Being a comment on our turn, we can choose up to 1 vehicle we control. It becomes a creature and gets haste. This is great because then we don't have to potentially crew maybe the biggest one that we have, or the hardest one to crew, or even one that just came in this turn. There's so many ways to take advantage of Chandra in that way. The +2 allows us to sacrifice an artifact or pitch a card to draw a card. Again, not a bad idea at all, especially if we have too much of something in our hand. We can pitch to keep drawing. Her 0 can make a vehicle if we need more of them. And then the -7 gives us the ability to dome something for 3 damage whenever an artifact comes in. Lita's going to untap all of our artifact creatures at the beginning of our end step. Really useful to untap all of our vehicles, especially if we have more vehicles laying around that we can crew defensive, or more creatures to crew if we want to crew our vehicles defensively. And then Armed and Arbor is one of a couple cards that can just turn all of our vehicles into creatures for the turn. A very interesting ability, and if we can use it at the right time, right, can be pretty darn useful. But let's get into just a selection of some of the vehicles we're running. Aerial Surveyor, when it attacks, if the defending player has more lands than we do, we get to go get a plains and put on the battlefield tapped. Vertibird's going to grow for the number of artifacts we control and can be a really nice flying threat. Cultivator's Caravan can start the beginning of the game as a mana dork, and then once we get enough mana, can be a nice 5/5 attacker. Horde Hauler, whenever it hits a player, I can make a treasure for each artifact they control. A pretty nice ability since it's a 5/5 with trample, and we can choose the player we want to attack. Lifecraft Engine comes in and chooses a type and turns all vehicles we control into that type. Obviously, we'd want to pick Dwarf here, right, to take advantage of those buffs from Depala and other things. And then each creature of we control of the chosen type other than this vehicle gets +1/+1. So it even buffs our dwarves up even more, right, if we do it that way. Mech Titan Core kind of gets to be our Megazord. We could pay 5 and exile it and 4 other artifact creatures or vehicles and summon a big 10/10 token with a bunch of abilities. When that token leaves the battlefield, we can return everything but core that we exiled to make it back to the battlefield for us, so it can kind of be a fun way to get a big threat. Nautiloid Ship, when it comes in, exiles an opponent's graveyard, and then whenever it hits a player, we can bring a creature back from their graveyard. This could be used to either make some more crewers for us or just take advantage of some creatures that our opponents have that we really want. Parhelion 2 is one of our nice big vehicle threats, a 5/5 first strike vigilance in the air. And whenever it attacks, we make 2 4/4 angels that are with vigilance that are attacking, not tapped and attacking, just attacking. So they're back to block, and they can crew the Parhelion. And then Peacewalker Colossus is a 6/6 with crew 4 that we can pay 2 to turn another vehicle we control into a creature to end a turn. And then, so that's a great ability to turn some of our other key, vehicles into creatures. Salvation Engine is another one of the great new ones, buffing all of our other artifact creatures. And then whenever it attacks, we can actually bring an artifact back from our graveyard back to the battlefield. It could be great if someone destroys one of our key vehicles to get them back. Skyseer's Chariot just seems interesting. When it comes in, we choose a non-land card name. Activated abilities of the sources with the chosen name costs 2 more to activate. I think there's a lot of ways to look at Skyseer's Chariot. I think it's best when your opponent's commander has an activated ability, but pick Soul Ring. You could pick Arcane Signet. There's a lot of ways to look at this card, but I think there's a floor even if your opponent's commanders don't have an activated ability. Thunderhawk Gunship comes in with a couple tokens that can help crew itself, and then whenever it attacks attacking creatures you control get flying till end of turn. So getting all of our creatures in the air is huge. Unlicensed Hearse can grow over the course of every turn, exiling cards from our opponent's graveyards, denying them those cards, but also growing itself. Valor's Flagship, one of the big new ones. 7 mana, 7/7 flying first strike lifelink, a big one that we can crew, and only crews 3, so it's going to be pretty easy to get it crewing up. And then Weatherlight, whenever it hits a player, can look at the top 5, get a historic card from among them, put it to our hand. So another way with Depala to dig through our deck. But it's not just vehicles that we care about. We're going to have artifacts, right? Because all of our vehicles are artifacts. So there's a way to care about those two. Digsite Engineer, whenever we cast an artifact spell, we can pay 2. If we do, we get to make a construct. That construct's going to grow for the number of artifacts we control. So mid to early game, it's going to be a nice core, but late game, it's just going to be another attack our opponents have to worry about. Jorkadine is going to give all of our creatures +3/+0 if we control 3 or more artifacts. A great way to make our crewers better, and also for our creatures and vehicles to hit harder in combat. And then Tempered Steel, giving all of our artifact creatures +2/+2 again, mostly useful for those vehicles. But I think it's important to care about the artifacts as well, and not just the vehicles, or care that they are artifacts too. And we see that with some of the cards that care about historic permanence, right? But there's more than just that. But I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again. No deck's ever complete. This is our version 1.0 shot at Depala. And I think in testing, there's a lot to learn. Do we have enough to crew? I didn't put something like Astor into the deck, even though I feel like a lot of people would want to. I like it as a card. I was just trying to play off those dwarves as much as I could. If we're having issues with crew, there's other things we can bring in to help with that. Start Your Engines, to my knowledge, is the only other real card that can just turn all your vehicles into creatures for the turn. I like Start Your Engines a ton. I just wanted to, again, focus on as much of that dwarf stuff as we could, and maybe that's something that comes in after testing as we realize how important that effects could be. And then not rolling Hamsphere specifically, but maybe there's more vehicles we want to add. I like Hamsphere. It's a fun, big vehicle that can kind of become an enigma of its own, but maybe there's other vehicles that come in, to up our count if we find we don't have enough of them. But let's get into our playtest. Remember, the goal of our playtest on the channel is not to find magical Christmas land. It's not to determine our best plays. It's to sit down and go through what the early game looks like. How do we set up our board state? How do we combine our cards together to get value and learn our play style? Here, keeping a 2-lander with Boros Signet, 2 7 Dwarves, and Armored, and that Valor's Flagship up on the top end. So we've got a little bit to work up to for that Valor's Flagship. We can get there. We'll put the Path of Ancestry in turn 1. Turn 2, I really want to get that Boros Signet down. So I'm going to do it. It looks like turn 3 here we'll have to put in a tap land unless we look ourselves into anything better, but that's okay. I think we'll get Depala down. Again, I'm really going to help these future ones we get in. Here we got a couple of choices. I get the Henge in untapped, which would be 5 mana. Could be fun to get, a couple 7 Dwarves down. Or we could get the Garrison in, which would lead us to 6 mana next turn. And we could still get double Dwarves in this turn. Tap that Sacred Peaks. So I don't bounce the Peaks, bounce the Command Tower before we, use it and then bounce it. So now we're at 5 mana, right? Going to 6 next turn. The Dwarves are going to help buff each other up just that little bit. And here I think Engine looks like a great play. We can crew it with both the 7 Dwarves, so that is an option for later. But we could just attack with Depala this turn if we have it. Otherwise, don't wait back a turn. Here on turn 7, I love the idea of just Valor's Flagship. I guess, well, we could do that, or we could go deep on Depala, right? Because we could crew Salvation Engine with Depala and one of the 7 Dwarves. Just go 7 deep in. We could put like the Wheelsmith down and then go 4 deep. I kind of like the idea of just going 7 deep into Depala. Remember, we get all Dwarves and vehicles from among them into our hand, right? So we get SRAM and we get Magnus. Fortunately, we would have loved to have hit a couple more vehicles, but that's a-okay. Again, that's the point of Depala's ability, is really digging us deep to get access to some more things. Again, we got the Flagship here, or we could get something like Depala down, or Magda down, right? That could start making us treasures once these guys tap to crew. I like the idea of something like Lita. I kind of like the idea of digging more, especially for more things. 5 mana left. Is it just Wheelsmith and SRAM? Just to go deep. And then tap the 2 7 Dwarves to crew for the Salvation Engine. That'll make us 2 treasures off of Magda. If Depala attacks it, it could get one, or it could be one of the ones that crews. Either way, we get a couple of treasures there, right? Salvation Engine can attack this turn. Again, now this is going to be helpful to fund, right, more of our vehicles coming in. Pay 7 for the Flagship. Draw a card off of SRAM. Pay. We need to get a couple more in to be able to play another one for the Communing Minecart. But we could crew up Salvation Engine, getting a couple more treasures. We could crew the Flagship, right? It just can't attack this turn. But we could still crew it if we want to, for the purposes of like Depala's ability or something else, just to get another treasure. But I think I'd just pay a couple of them for the minecart, just to again draw some more, get some more things. And now this turn, right, we could really crew up here if we want to, get a bunch of treasures. There is also the world where, so we need 5 treasures to search with SRAM, or search with Magda, right? I was thinking we could arm and armored, but I think we're going to have to crew up to get there. We'd need 3. So we could crew the Flagship and the engine with these 3. That would allow us to get 3 more treasures. Depala could go off. We could go, what, for 5? 6 off the top? If we're going to arm and armored. We get Glowing, we get the Trinketeer. And we get the Entity. Sorry, that is a Dwarf as well. And then my thought is go get something like here. My thought is something like Parhalion, although Lifecraft Engine could actually be really good here to buff all of our Dwarves. And then I guess Armin doesn't give haste. Still life cap for Dwarf. All of our Dwarves that aren't there can just, take in a big attack, and I think we're in good shape there. So let's get into playtest number 2. Keeping a 3-lander with the Surveyor. Arcane Signet, Horde Hauler Path. Got a decent hand here. Looking to get Depala down here turn 3 as we build ourselves up. Or we could go Magda plus 7 Dwarves, but I think either way we want to get SRAM plus Magda couldn't be bad here either, since we're going to end up playing a couple artifacts. Boros Garrisons, unfortunately. I wish it was an untapped land to go for 5, but we have 4 here, so I guess play the Horde Hauler and get the Garrison down. That'll draw us a card, and then we can crew it on future turns and start getting treasures right when we're tapping our things. Here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. I like Depala. I like the Surveyor to draw a card. We can crew up the Horde Hauler, and if we do, we're going to get a treasure from Magda. And then if we can actually hit somebody, we can get a couple more treasures. But either way, Depala just probably crews up the Horde Hauler there. And I think that leaves 4 mana? We played Depala, that's right. So no mana left there to dig with Magda, or to dig with Depala, but I think that's okay, because then this turn, the Aventer Sphere, we could, get a couple of vehicles in, right? And we're starting to have enough crewers. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. So think what? Sky Sovereign and 7 Dwarves. Crew the Horde Hauler with Depala. Crew the Surveyor with Magda. Crew the Sky Sovereign with somebody again, just to draw the card or just get the treasure, right? Because then we have a chance at getting stuff. Maybe Horde Hauler gets us that 5th treasure, and we can just dig deep here. I'm thinking Lifecraft Engine could be good here because of that buff, right? We do have a decent amount of Dwarves that could end up being attackers. I kind of like the idea of going for that, something like Thunderhawk Gunship to get them all in the air, especially since we're going to start having a couple of them. But I see the thing I like about the Lifecraft is we do already have a couple in the air, so they're just going to end up becoming, threats. But again, pick Dwarf here. Now all Dwarves get +1/+1 as well, so they're +2/+2, right? With Depala. And then what? Just Jorkadine, 7 Dwarves, crew up, get some more treasures, and again, now we're in near perfect shape, right? Crew up our vehicles, attack where we can. All of our Dwarves are getting buffs, and we're getting treasures, and I think we can just keep, once we hitting that 5 threshold, right? Keep searching, keep getting things out. Our last playtest here, keeping a 3-lander with the Banner, Master Trinketeer, and 7 Dwarves, and we see the engine again. Not in bad shape here. We can go 7 Dwarves there. Next turn, get Depala down, just so that way we can attack with 7 Dwarves that turn if we want to. Turn 4, I think it's just the Trinketeer, right? Although I guess we could attack this turn and just go 4 deep into Depala, but I think it makes more sense just to do the Trinketeer, right? 7 Dwarves is getting that buff because of Depala, so it can still attack. Turn 5, I mean, the Banner is tempting, but I think it makes sense just to dig if possible, right? We do have the engine. We could play this turn, right? And we could crew it, even though it's not there, but we don't have that Magda ability to really take advantage of it. So I think we could attack with the doors if we want to, but just hold up here. Now we've got 6 mana up. I think this is the turn where we can dig with Depala. Pay 2 for Magda. This gives us a treasure outlet for eventually when we can make them. Crew 6, I'm thinking Trinketeer plus Depala. And then that gives us 4 to dig into. We get 7 Dwarves soaring. We got 2 Dwarves basically, which isn't bad. That means more crewers for the future. Coming in the next turn, we didn't get that 7th land for that Reaver Titan, but that's okay. I think we went 7 Dwarves. Play the Fanatic. And We could even dig again, dig again this turn. We could keep the Fanatic in our hand and dig again, just to see what we can get for 4. Crew up the Salvation Engine and dig for 4. Gearsmith Ace. That's what we find. Again, we're digging here for vehicles. This is just one of those awkward hands where, we didn't get to see another one except that huge Reaver Titan. We could always crack that fair if we want to, but here, I think now is probably just time to banner. Get, 5 counters on it. And now our dwarves can just get in and attack, right? Obviously we want to get the vehicles going, but here it might just make sense more to play into our dwarf tribal and just get in there. But let me know, what do you think of Depala down in the comment section below? I think it's interesting. There's some interesting dwarves that we get access to, and of course, you got all those vehicles, including all those new ones. So I think there's a lot of great options. If you have Depala, I'd love to know what you think of my brew, and I will catch you all in the next one.